something that I talk to our guys about is, man, one thing that we can do this off season is, man, if I'm playing against you in a pickup game, I'm not going to tell you how bad you suck, right? Because at the end of the day, you are my teammate, right? And I get we're going to have some trash talk. You never know how that guy is going to take it, right? So he might leave the gym thinking, you know what, I lost, I do suck. And at the end of the day, that's not making our team better. So one of our big cries this spring is not saying stupid stuff out loud. So
welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we're joined by the head boys basketball coach at LD Bell High School, Scott Hyde. Coach Hyde just completed his first season as a head coach, 11th year overall. He's had coaching stops at San Antonio Can High School and Dallas Sunset High School. During his time at LD Bell, he's helped lead the Blue Raiders to bi-district championship in 2019 and a district championship in 2020. In 2020, Coach Hyde was named Co-Coach of the Year for District 3-6A as the interim head coach. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast. Yes, sir. What's up, man?
not much. How are you doing?
Good, man. I'm so glad we can make this happen. This is exciting for me.
No doubt. Me too. I appreciate you having me on.
Tell me what's new with you this time of year.
Yeah, just this is actually my my first kind of full spring up at Bell as the head coach. So just trying to navigate those waters and make some adjustments and get our we have a really young team, so getting our guys through really most of our guys, we have a bunch of freshmen, so this is their first real high school off season. So navigating that, and my assistant coach actually just had a child a couple days ago, so that's super exciting for them. But that switches everything up on me. A lot of pressure on me these days. So
yeah.
A lot of newness, but it's a lot of fun. It's always exciting.
That's what I was going to say. That is an exciting time, though, with it. A lot of the coaches I get to talk to on here, they've been doing it 20, 30 years, and they're on kind of that side of it. And then there's some like me who are kind of right in the middle. But I've actually had a couple coaches ask, like, if I would or if I've ever had somebody. Not that you're just starting out. How many years as an assistant or in coaching have you had?
Yeah, so this is my 11th year in coaching.
Okay.
I was actually crazy story. So my first job was in a super small charter school in San Antonio. Was the head coach there. We were in the Texas Charter School League. Ended up being in TCAL for a year and doing some good stuff there. Just, man, great kids, worked super hard. Just a small situation. I was in Teach for America, so I was placed there, and coached there for a couple of years, and then moved up, and I was the assistant coach, varsity assistant at Dallas Sunset and Dallas ISD. So then I was there for a year, and then went on and did the junior high thing in HEB at Central Junior High for 2 years, and that's kind of how I got connected up at Bell. Willie Henderson was the head coach up at Bell, and coached with him a lot, and also Coach Malines at Trinity. I was at a split feeder, so it was every Tuesday night that Bell was at home, I was sitting on their bench, and every Friday night when Trinity was on their bench. So when they played each other, I sat in the top row and watched. But that was my start. And then 5 years ago, I guess 6 years ago now, Brock Pimbleton got the head job at Bell, and I got brought up as the assistant. So I was the assistant there for 5 years. So, man, I felt like I had the assistant thing down in the spring. So it's been a little change being on the other side, but man, it's been awesome. Everything I ever thought it would be, for sure.
In 11 years, that is quite a bit of experience, though, and at every level. So I would imagine you have a large appreciation for what your assistants go through, the junior high coaches and everything. And what do you feel like is the big difference between that 18, 19 inch move over that you've done? What's some of the big differences?
Gosh, I was just talking to. I'm lucky enough that Coach Pemberton he took a leap up and is the coordinator on campus. So I still have him to kind of bounce off of ideas. And he towards the end of the year, he kind of asked me the same question. Honestly, I feel like the biggest difference is my words carry so much more weight now than what they did the last 5 years. I can kind of be long-winded, but man, I've learned to not talk as much because sometimes I don't need to. But that's been a big part of it, and it just never stops, which is good. But there's always something to do. There's always you feel like you're never want to miss out on a chance to get better, and I guess that's been the biggest things. But for sure, it's been man, I got to be on the ball whenever I'm talking to our guys because those I guess the assistant coach only listens so much, but whenever I talk now, all of a sudden everybody remembers what I say now. So
Well, yeah, when you're an assistant, the windows of opportunities are so small. So
yeah,
you don't have that many. And when you do, it's not open for very long. And so
yeah,
you do have to be very concise with what you say and not too wordy. And then, but you're right. When you're the one setting the tone every day, there is a different type of pressure with that. And then I love what you said about that it never stops. I think that's what, if I could say one difference between, and not every select coach, but having coached select ball in my past and then doing the school thing more, that's the biggest difference. Is that you're right, like especially as the head coach, it doesn't stop. So like if you think about, you finish up the season, and then however much time you choose or your players choose, your spring begins, and you've got this spring plan and you're going through it, and then like you're about 7 weeks into it, and then you think, well, crap, like the summer's coming. I've got to have that schedule done. The open gyms, any other plans that we're doing, I got to know about their spring and summer ball. So then you get into the summer, and as a teacher, it's nice because you get to be home, and you're not. But then you start to think, oh, okay, schedule wise, do I have everything set up not just for the fall, but for the winter? And so like it never stops. And but then I would imagine, you being a little bit younger, and we're going to get into a balancing that coaching family life, like the organizational piece
for
becomes
sure.
huge, right?
Yeah, man, that's what I will say this at the beginning of all this, an organization has never been one of my strengths. I've been a guy that man, my system
It's
of
gonna
work.
be.
Yeah, sure. But the guys ahead of me that I've kind of been able to learn from have been super organized. So I've gotten to learn from their example on how that needs to work because you're right. It's organization part of that is man when it comes from scheduling to making sure you're staying on the ball with and now we get an opportunity to play so much with TABC in the month of June. We can do so much more. So you have to be really intentional about getting those days out because those guys are our kids are playing a bunch with their select teams, their AAU, and making sure our parents have the dates that we want them to have a chance to be with us. That gets carved out pretty early is really important.
And talk about balance right there with your players, because not only do they hear your voice all year long, now you're right, especially at the public school. Private school, we've kind of been able to do this for a long time, but public school, you can have your hands on them and more throughout the summer. But
Yep.
there's a danger with that, because if we're encouraging them to play select ball, and I still see value in select ball, hearing a different voice, playing with different people, learning a different style of play. Because even though you and I love our style of play, there's other ways to do it, and it's good for their IQ and overall well-roundedness as a player to do that. But then all of a sudden, like from a parent's perspective, okay, you want us playing select ball, which that's like every other weekend and a few practices a week, but you also want him to be in the gym with you and doing these things too. Like
Yep.
there,
Yep.
it's really, we can, burnout, you hear that term, and I love, like, I think Alan Stein or somebody said, like, there's no such thing. I agree with that. No. Jeff Evans, who I just recently from Paladuro had a talk with, and he said there's no such thing as burnout, and I've always felt the same way. but we can, for some of these kids that only like it, we can start to clutter up their days too much.
For sure. I definitely think our kids love to play. And if they have a gym, they'll play. We're great. Our kids want to be in the gym, which we're super lucky to have kids that are like that. But I definitely think that there's a burnout in them only hearing me, right? That at some
Yes,
point, my words really become not empty. I think they're respectful and they pay attention to what we say, but definitely hearing that other voice and seeing some other perspective is huge. I that's why I think the spring and summer is big. Sometimes I just want to shut up, and just let somebody else take it over a little bit because I think our voices carry more weight when we get back to school. I think we've lost a little bit. I remember like when I grew up in Missouri and was played all my life growing up just until high school, but there was always that fresh start in August, right? Like I would, we'd be done with the season. We'd go on and have a little bit of an off season in the summertime. It was about camps and you heard all kinds of voices. And then when school started, it was like, well, there's the coach again. And it was fresh. At some point, sometimes I don't feel like there is that restart button anymore.
totally agree with that. And that's impressive too. That, I mean, I know I don't want to ever act like, as a young coach or somebody that's only been doing it for you actually have a decade of experience, and it doesn't really matter what level. So you have been doing this stuff, but it's impressive that you've realized that, because I think it took me a while where, I mean, if you would have told me 10, 15 years ago that, yeah, hey, you can have them more and you can be around, I would have just created this schedule that maximizes that time. But then I think there is something too, especially in the spring and summer, less is more with
Yeah.
us in school ball, because we're going to withdraw so much from them in the fall and in the winter.
Yeah.
So instead of withdrawing more again, let's deposit and let's just be a different type of voice during this time of year.
Yeah. I just love, honestly, going to watch our guys play. I know we talked whenever we were over at the Gasso.
Yep.
Uh, they say Hyde. I just like sometimes just being a spectator and watching those guys play and seeing how they react to other guys talking. I think we miss some of that sometimes, but being a spectator can be a good thing at times,
And,
I think.
and I think we can help them too in a different way. Like, so they're on a select team with a different coach and different teammates running a different style. And they may have some questions over, like, what ways can they maximize their time? How can they help that team win more? And
Yeah.
separating ourselves from LD Bell or Faith basketball. Okay, Johnny, as just a player on this team, here's some things I think you could do. And it has nothing to do with our system. I think that's really helpful. And then you and I both know that when we're there in the stands watching those guys play, they may not act like it means a lot, but it means a lot.
No doubt, no doubt. I totally agree. I think the time put in that is goes a long way, especially down the road when we're asking a lot out of them. I think that's putting some deposits in for sure. With those guys.
Well, I love getting to learn about people's daily habits. I think Tim Ferriss, his book Tools of Titans, and then listen to his podcast really kind of turned me on to what do successful people do daily that kind of help them to maximize their time. So what daily habits set you up for success?
Yeah, so I'm a morning guy. I like the earlier the better. I've challenged myself. It used to be I've tried to get a little bit earlier. I used to get up at 5. I've been recently since the season's over, been trying to get up at 4:30. I I open up our gym at 6 a.m. every day. I try to get our guys as much opportunities as they can get in shots up. I like to run too, so every morning I run 3 miles. Usually around Bell or something like that. It just kind of sets the day off right and gets my head clear. I Yesterday actually we had testing yesterday and I didn't get to run and I felt like I was a mess all day long. Kind of woke up a little bit later, it's kind of off the schedule, but I'm definitely a creature of habit. But I get so many things checked off the list between 5 a.m. and 7:30, much more than I do the rest of the day for sure. So I think the first thing is just waking up early and getting the day going and working out and I think just it's mostly it started for our guys. just making sure that that was really the most that we could have carved out, that they could have time in the gym to get shots up. And then my schedule has kind of moved around that, but that's been big. I think another thing that we have that's been great at Bell that I didn't even know existed before I got to Bell, and this is from the leadership of Coach Pembleton, is we have a coach's Bible study once a week that we do on campus at 6:30 on Thursday mornings. That we have various coaches on campus. We get about 6 or 8 coaches there, and every week having a check in and going through the curriculum that they have and the leadership through that is really helps center thing and keeps things in perspective throughout the season and the off season. And man, that's been huge for me. So every Thursday morning, it's something to look forward to when it comes to that. So that's the big thing. And then trying to at night, whenever I get home, usually we'll run open gym after school, but when I get home, attempting to, and my wife is big on this, to try to unplug a little bit. And
Yeah.
I've my kids are gosh, getting ready to be 5 and 6, almost 7, and unplug and spending time with them, I think, is another deal that allows me to be at my best whenever I'm at work and at school. So
Man, that getting up early thing is just something that's always been a little bit of a challenge for me. And but the mornings that I do it, like when I'm laying there, this is the last thing in the world I want to do. But within a minute or two of actually getting up and moving around, I realize that I'm fine and that I'm okay. But
yeah,
it's kind of like that, a little bit of mental toughness, I think, with that. Like Mono Watsu with PGC, he gets up early and he takes a cold shower. Like maybe that's that next level of toughness. But yeah, I would imagine the way that you feel on those days where you don't get it in, I would think a lot of people feel like that most days. Because if you're
yeah.
always in a hurry, if you feel like at the end of the day you just didn't have enough time to get everything done, I think that's what these daily habits are really all about, is what do you need to do maybe to back up your time a little bit to achieve to where you are focused and clear headed throughout most of your day.
No doubt. Yeah, it's huge. And like I said, I don't necessarily want to. It's not. I would rather be asleep personally, but it's just what I have to do to be at my best. So getting that done, and like you said, the running part of it has been big. I was not, man. I was 10 years ago. If you would have talked to me, I would have been the world's least likely person to ever put on running shoes and run down the road. That sounded absolute misery, but at the coach. There was he was a retired athletic director, I believe, from Northside. His name was Coach Short, George Short. He was an assistant principal at the school that I started at, and I'm coaching there for a year. And man, my habits were about as bad as they could be. I was waking up at the last minute, and I was eating patty melts from Whataburger and drinking Dr. Pepper every night till I got home. And I remember, I will not forget it. The end of my first year, he brings me in his office and he says, "Coach, I'm gonna tell you one thing. If you're ever gonna be a head coach at a high school, you ain't gonna look like how you look right now. So you need to make sure you start running tomorrow." And man, I listened to him. I was out on the track and I couldn't even run a lap. But it's really that was tough to hear, but it's changed my life. Like I've ever since that I've run a half marathon, which I never would have thought was
Wow.
possible. I
Good for you, man. I mean, honestly, when you were talking about your habits, I was like, okay, get up early. I like that. And then you mentioned running. I said, nope. Like in my head, like, no, that is not something I'll do. I will walk on an incline. There's something about that incline walk at a speed that you can still talk at that helps
yep,
to burn actual fat a little bit more than just the sugar that you have stored up in your body. But and that's maybe a little bit of nerding out right there on that stuff. But the running I won't do, but I do appreciate the fact that you do that. And like a kind of a little golden nugget there is have people in your life that are going to tell you the truth. Like, because you get to a certain point, maybe with age, maybe with where you're the school you're at, where like you might not have a mentor like that, but
right.
you gotta search them out and also be a person that's willing to take that type of advice instead of maybe Nobody's giving you any advice or kind of hold you accountable because they don't think you'll listen. And I think
Yeah,
that's a dangerous place to be.
I think you're right. Yeah, and I try to get more habits that are, I'm a big fan of Buzz Williams at A&M, and man, that guy's got some really good habits. And even listening to the coaches that you've had on here, I know listen to Coach Cross and how he reads and stuff. And I've tried to be reading a little bit more. I would like to read a lot more than what I do, but I've at least been trying to take. I would love to get to a book a month. That's my goal. That's my lofty goal, but I'm not quite there yet. But just reading, I've been reading a little bit more since the off season, and I've definitely found reading during the season changes things for me.
Hmm.
Uh, During this season, I read Coach Drew's book, and man, that's just it keeps everything in perspective. And all of a sudden, to read what another coach is going through, especially somebody you're like, oh man, everything's come easy to this guy. They're winning national titles, and just to hear the struggles and it's reading a book in the season for me is I've done that the last couple of years, and it's helped a ton.
It's such a cool idea, like to think about the things that we waste our time with. I need to almost one day just anytime I grab my phone, like write down the time and
Yeah,
then without really trying to change anything, but see how long I'm on it, write down the time, and then add that time up and think about like, what if I would have I would change the habit of just scrolling or being on my phone and pick up a book instead, because I feel like you're the same way. Whether it is getting in the word or reading another book, it's incredible how often whatever you're reading at that moment, there's something in there that can help you in that moment of time. Obviously, the Bible's great for that.
right.
That living word that is the way that it can transform your life in any given moment. But other books can do that as well. I was reading through, I just finished up a book called Glory Hunger by J.R. Vassar, which is the pastor at the church we go to, Church of the Cross. And it's all about we all hunger for glory, but we need to be looking or searching for the right glory, right?
Yeah,
Not the glory that I could get from you or you could get from me, but
yeah.
the glory that we actually give him. Like that's a huge shift right there. So in the season, and this kind of ties me back to what you had said about Buzz Williams and those guys that have these incredible daily habits. Like, you look at Buzz Williams, he reads a book a week, and
Yeah.
he posts those books in one graphic all year long, and you're like, but when you hear that, instead of being inspired by it, I don't know about you, I get a little bit deflated. So that comparison is the thief of all joy. Like we need to drop those comparisons and just what can you do in your day that's realistic, that is moving in that right direction, but don't feel so bad that you're not doing everything that some of those dudes are doing.
No doubt. And man, I am when it comes to comparison, I might be the world's worst because man, you see all these stuff that all these guys that you look up to and people that you admire are doing. And yeah, just like man, I look at Buzz's list and I'm just trying to pick out one book because there's that he's read, but yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I'm even with I think this year when I was reading Coach Drew's book and his stuff with joy,
Yep.
and Jesus, others, yourself, and that was changing for us just with and me and my assistant would talk about it during the season and just became something that fit in perfectly with what we were kind of in need of at the time. Like you said, there's always something about it. That's the amazing thing. Actually, I just finished a book by it's called "It Takes What It Takes" by Trevor Moad, he worked closely with Russell Wilson. I think he actually passed away a few years ago, but just talking about daily habits and if you want to be great, that like the title of the book says, it takes what it takes, and there's certain things that we have to do. And um, what was big for he was big into having this kind of this marketing campaign in your mind about who you want to be, and he was big about not saying dumb things out loud. So that was big into
I
our
love
guys.
that. Yeah.
Something that I talk to our guys about is man, what one thing that we can do this off season is man, if I'm playing against you in a pickup game, I'm not going to tell you how bad you suck, right? Because at the end of the day, you are my teammate, right? And I get, we're gonna have some trash talk, and a
Sure.
guys, you never know how that guy's gonna take it, right? So he might leave the gym thinking, you know what, I lost, I do suck, and at the end of the day, that's not making our team better. So one of our big cries this spring is not saying stupid stuff out loud. So
Coach,
it's big.
that's a good nugget. And that idea too, of it takes what it takes, like that's an important lesson for us to help our players understand because I mean, you and I both, we've had the freshmen that look like they're 18 or the freshmen that look like they're 12. And both of those dudes are going to progress at different levels. So, but for both of them, like how, coach, like when is my shot going to start feeling good? When am I going to start seeing makes? Man, like we can't say something dumb and give them, I think by the end of this month, like it takes what it takes. But like
Yeah,
you keep embracing it. You put one good day on top of another. But then as coaches, that's an important reminder because we can go into a season. I failed at this last year. I went into a season with expectations. I think that's one of the most dangerous things. Not a lack of excellence. Excellence means we're always trying to strive to do our very, very best. But if you
yeah,
come in with expectations, man, we have this many guys coming back. This is what the district looks like. This is what the landscape of our classification looks like. Guys, I think this could really be it. What if it's not? And what if things happen throughout, or they just take longer to gel? Man, at what point are we going to be what I thought? It takes what it takes. But those expectations, though, they can really steal your joy and cripple you pretty quick.
man. Talking about just going into my first year as being the head coach too. My expectations for myself, man, the sky's the limit, man. I'm gonna take over this thing, and we're gonna nothing's stopping us,
I'm going to be presenting at TABC this spring for sure.
No, no, no. There's that is you talk about robbing your joy is I definitely am still probably trying to filter through some of that stuff because we were in a situation that, man, we had one senior that was a returner this year, and we started a sophomore with no varsity experience and a freshman, and brought a bunch of freshmen off the bench, and um, expectations for myself were always high, and I kind of I guess was guilty of defining myself by our win and loss record, and that was tough for me, and learning that lesson of finding the joy in the process and in the journey. I can say I'm a lot better of it now than I was in October, but you're right on it with that.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Bology. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Bology app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Bology skills assessment. Please visit bology.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. You had talked a little bit ago about your family life and how you unplug at the end of the day, which, man, it's hard to do. You can unplug as far as like turning off your phone and not do this, but like even mentally unplugging, like I don't know how many times I'm sitting there with my family, but in my brain, I'm at practice.
Yeah,
I'm going over clips and planning, thinking about tomorrow, stressing about things, worrying. When I did teach, I used to show this video by Boz Lerman. Man, coach, I haven't thought about this in years. A video by Boz Lerman. I think it's called Sunscreen. And it's this weird song that he's like talks it through, but this song that it just goes through all these life lessons like wearing sunscreen, how you're going to benefit from it one day, right? And he talks about worrying is like trying to solve an algebra problem by chewing gum. But like I'm sitting there with my family and I can't disconnect. So how do you balance coaching and family life?
very carefully, and it's a work in progress, Coach. My wife is I am so lucky to have her because she is big on me about this, and it has been talk about the adjustment between being an assistant and a head coach. I could unplug as an assistant
Yeah.
really easily, like I could go home and you're worried about it. It matters, but it doesn't matter like it matters now.
Sorry to cut you off because I
Oh,
remember being with Wes Watson, and I hope if he watches this, he doesn't get mad at me. But there was a level of sitting in that 18 inches over of, yeah, I'm in it and I care and I want to win. I care about Coach Watson's success. I want to know how many wins he has because in some weird way I feel like I'm tied to that. And I remember actually asking him one day, Coach, what are you at right now? And he's like, I don't know. I was like, what do you mean you don't know? Like as a young kid, like that's what's all important. But he's been doing it for 20 years and it's he didn't even care. But I remember thinking, at the end of the day, this isn't my ship.
right.
Like I, no matter what happens, I'm not going down with this ship. Like that's just or yeah. But so I get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So no, you're right, and you're right. It never stops, and it's gosh, if it's putting the kids down, I'm trying to talk to them about their day, and in the back of my mind, I'm worried about what just happened 2.5 hours ago at practice, or what we're going to do on Monday. Gosh, I was um, Coach P, the head coach who was at Bill last few years. He would talk about like, man, I feel so guilty because I'll be sitting at church on Sunday and the preacher's preaching, and I'm worried about what we need to do at practice the next day, and I'd be like, yeah, I don't know if I'm not there yet. And man, I'm guilty. I had 3 or 4 months of it this year. You're sitting there, and I should be thinking about everything else but what I'm thinking about right now. So it's definitely a work in progress, but I think it goes back to the people that you surround yourself with. And I think it's my wife holding me accountable, and she does. And I am far from perfect at it, but I also have to realize like I'm not gonna get back this time with my kids. I heard a stat the other day that said like, man, by the time your kids are 12 years old, you've already had 80% of the one-on-one time you're gonna have with them for the rest of their lives, which is scary. And I
Wow.
don't know that is, but I heard that and I'm like, man, like I'm sitting here worried about I can need to watch film, or I need to do this, or I need to do that, and
Hmm.
uh, missing out on these moments, and it takes kind of somebody thumping you on the head, or moments like, what am I doing? I got to be here, but like you said, it's a work in progress. But I think knowing it's half the battle.
Yeah. Great, man, what a great reminder right there. And even if that stat, like let's just say it's not 80%, but if it's even remotely close to that, like
Yeah,
50%, like
right.
that's alarming. And I'm past that. Like mine are just one just turned 17 and the other's 15 and a half. So it's like I'm already, on the other end of that. But it maybe, like what's the worst pain? Man, it's regret. And so maybe a little regret on worrying about things that don't even come close to mattering that much. My wife, her dad was a football coach for 30 plus years. And so if there's a sport where coaches have figured out how to work long hours, it's football.
Yeah,
Like they're just up there all the time. So she saw that, in her dad. She saw that with what happened with the relationship with her parents. And then she meets me, and I'm a coach that, yeah, like hard to leave after practice, hard to turn the brain off. But one thing she said to me, and I've probably failed at it a ton, but she just always said, like, she never wants to come second. She never wants to come second to
yeah,
basketball. And my hope is that 95 or more percent of the time she feels like she's first.
mm,
But and then like we want to be vulnerable with our players and we want to let them know we've made mistakes. You can tell when you've been gone for a while and you get home and you immediately turn on huddle, and that it like but just owning up to that. And then but just always, I think, remembering, no matter what your faith is and who is first, your wife has to come before, your family has to come before this job.
no doubt, man. Like I know. this past year, I don't know what you guys were doing with when we had the ice or snow days or whatever, and it was right towards the end of the season, and I just remember like looking back, talk about regret. It's like I spent probably 75% of that time worrying about rescheduling games, or now we were playing this team on Friday. Well, now we're playing them on Saturday and not Friday. So I've been spending all this time scouting, and now I need to watch 3 films over this game, this team. Um, and then I look back at it and I'm like, I, was the 75% of the time that I gave, did that pay any dividends for me, or did I just lose a bunch of time with my family that I'm not going to get back? But it's those reminders. It's no different than what we tell our guys. I think it's okay to not be okay with that as long as we don't stay that way, right? Like we gotta learn from those times that we kind of feel that, like you said, like when we know that we've done that.
What's another quality that you see in great leaders?
Yeah. I really admire. I think you can tell in a coach somebody that's really bought into the process. Somebody that isn't like you watch the NCAA tournament and the coaches that and I went to Arkansas, so our coach was taking his shirt off after games and after that, but we
You
but
don't do that?
yeah, not quite. But you listen to some of these coaches who you can tell that winning the game is important. Obviously, that's why we do what we do. But they knew going into the game that what they had gone through in the process getting there, that whatever happens, they were going to be okay with because they knew that they had put the work in, right? So I think leaders that can get their teams and themselves and their coaching staff bought into the day-to-day process and the work of getting there. I know, like another Buzz Williams thing. Success is a lagging indicator, right? That it is our us the work that we've put in. Sometimes we don't see it immediately, but the ones I'm not saying that I have this perfect at all, but buying into the day to day, we're going to get better today and we're going to work on this. And we might not see the fruits of our labor tomorrow or the game on Friday night, but somewhere down the road, this is going to pay off. I think there's peace in that process somewhere, right? And finding that um, that's been big for me.
That's a really good nugget. And this time of year, I try to remind myself that, like, so we'd run pickup on Mondays and Fridays, and the reason for that is like I'm anticipating that they are coming off of a tournament. Since we want them to play select ball, the idea is they just played 4 to 5 games. So on a Monday, I'm not gonna kill them. I'm not gonna do anything. We're not gonna do skill work. You can play pickup. You can get on the shooting guns. You can foam roll. You can shoot free throws. You can meet with me and talk about it. Have any questions you had over the weekend. And then, but on Friday we do the same thing. But I have to remind myself that when I'm watching them play pickup, they're not a team yet. I can't treat them like they're a team. They're half of the team from last year with a bunch of JV guys that are now moving up and playing with them. But we haven't developed that culture yet with them. Yes, they individually know it, but team culture and how they actually treat and play together, that takes time. And that's a process. But my whole thought behind this was, a couple of weeks ago, I sat there thinking like, golly, we can't shoot. Like they're shooting a lot of shots, but very few makes.
Yeah.
And it's like, 3 or 4 possessions back in a row, empty, empty, empty. But then I've got to like snap back out of that mindset, because
Yeah.
if I start to think we don't shoot very well, and I think, okay, in 8 months, offensively, we're going to really have to do some different things. No, like that's the wrong way to look at that. Is one, the quality of shots. Are they shooting in our mind sevens? If they can create sevens for each other, then I got to think, okay, more is their footwork right? Are they shooting confidently? Is that what our offense wants to create? And if it is, awesome. Then I have to choose to believe that over time and getting the right amount of shots up and then continuing to plug and play like that and experiment when it matters, those are going to be makes. But man, it's really easy to watch it and go, oh no, like who are we going to be? I don't
Right.
know. That's in 7, 8 months. But I
Yeah.
like what they're doing right now. I like the chances that they're taking. And so I'm going to, like Gannon Baker said, I'm going to celebrate the crap out of the try right now because that's
Yep.
what type of year it is.
Yep. For sure. Like I know we're big right now into like pace and space, right? Like we're gonna be really good at our spacing. We're gonna be really good at our pace. And I even at to begin the off season, we're kind of going through the same thing. You know, younger guys and bringing some newer guys into the fold. And it's a month ago, I was like, man, like same thing. We're gonna have to do something totally different. Like this, just there's no way this is gonna get right. And,
Don't freak out, coach. It's April.
you know, but like there was last Thursday, we're running some stuff in transition, and it looks like we have guys in the right spots all of a sudden. And like I just had to stop practice. You know, everybody's like headed towards the line or something. Like, oh man, what did we do wrong now? But like I just had to like just stop and just be like, guys, like that's perfect. Like that did not look right 2 weeks ago. But you know, it's just like you said, waiting it out, and I had to let them fail. You know, and getting there. And like I said, you know, it's problems in April, you know, but it's letting those guys fail and letting them fail through it, and not having them be afraid of failure. Like you're saying there, like you could easily stop your guys and man, what are we doing? Like we got to stop here.
After the third air ball, I could stop him and say, listen, maybe that's not your shot. But at the same time, like, okay, at what point do they have bike riding time anymore where they are allowed to make a mistake and just get right back on the bike and keep going? Because the same way that bike riding skill, once you've got it, you never lose it. We want basketball IQ and skill development. Yes, if you don't do it for a long time, it's a little different. But Michael Lancaster talked about once they acquire a skill like a drop, getting low, getting that ball in our pocket, being a spear, not a shield, right? Like once we get that skill, man, that won't leave them. And I'd rather them come back after the summer, with more skills than necessarily running our scheme correctly. Because if I trust the process and how I can teach it, they'll get that. But or I could spend time, and this is not on defense in the spring, which, in my opinion, I can do that in November. And but what I can't do is quickly in November get them lower, more dynamic, more confident with the ball, having better footwork, better passing abilities. Yeah, I don't know, but I guess that's a direction that you have to choose. It's kind of like what Pat Riley said. He said, ours isn't the only way to do this. It's just the way we love to do this. And I think that's kind of where I've landed.
Yeah, I think letting kids work on things that are not strengths right now is a big deal, and not stopping them. Like, I think it's easy to, nope, that's not your shot, or nope, you don't do that very well. So do things that you do. Well, this is the time to get good at it, right? And I think sometimes we can put kids in a corner and we forget that this is the time of year to experiment. Like if a kid's going to become a threat from the outside and he wasn't that last year, like this is the time to develop that.
Yeah, don't shatter that confidence right now, because you and I have both had, we've had players that are younger that continue to progress. They're good when they're young, continue to progress, and they're great when they finish.
Yep.
But we've also had a few of those times where when they're seniors and they're doing amazing things, and you would have gone, man, I remember when they were a freshman, and there's no way that they'd be doing this. I think we do have a lot of responsibility with the direction that they can go, as a player. And I remember back to, I think maybe going into my junior year of Baylor, Coach Bliss was watching us play just pick up during the summer, and we had a new walk-on freshman, and he's out there jacking it, and doing all these things. And Coach Bliss walks up to him, and I was close enough. And he said, "You need to stop shooting. You're not here to do that." And like
Oof.
it was like so direct. I could see his soul just leave, like
Yeah,
and confidence. But the reminder is that the high school level, like they're not college players. We don't have
right.
scholarship guys that need to get. All of these dudes are, like Coach K said, they're still becoming. And so even if in the spring it looks bad and the spacing's not what I want, and they're catching and holding it too long, or they're shooting some contested jump shots that I cringe inside, it's bike riding time. They're becoming.
Right. And I think that goes into, just like what you were asking me a second ago about what great leaders or coaches do. And I think it's exactly that, is to give their guys opportunities to get better. Right. They're not shutting them down, and they have kids that have confidence, right? Have confidence to experiment and get better in areas that might be a weakness right now. So that's big.
And I think the challenge too is to not look at that as, oh, well, that it must be a free for all over there. Like they're just coming down across half court and jacking it. Well, no. Like one, Coach Butterfield said, peer pressure can be good.
Yeah.
Like you want to use the positive side of peer pressure, which is you've got four teammates. They want to win just as much as you. So you better do things that are going to lead to your team winning. But
Yep.
within that, the freedom to experiment. But then also what I love about that too is like if you have that kind of culture, that environment set up, you can really teach a lot out of that. Where I on those days of pickup, I get to sit there, and when they come off the floor, hey, tell me about that on the right side. You caught it, and you held it for a little bit, and then you shot. When you tell me what you felt in that position, in that spot. Well, I just felt like my feet were, and said, okay, well, great point. Let's do our homework early, arrive in space, make sure that when that leather touches your fingertips, your feet are down, so that, because the most open you're ever going to be is when, well, it's when I first catch it. Yeah, like, so that's when you want to be really prepared. And then if he's in your bubble and hands are high, what can we do? Well, I could lift. That's right. You could lift, and then you can read from there. But instead of, hey, you're taking bad shots,
Right.
boom,
Done.
conversation done.
Yep.
And I think PGC helped me out a lot with that, using that question method to help our players arrive at the answer themselves, instead of sometimes like a parent just giving them the answer, maybe help them come to it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how receptive kids are to that too, right? To those questions. And I think a lot of times we assume that they might not have the answers to those questions, but a lot of times it's amazing they do. There's a reason for what they did, and walking them through that, or walking them through the adjustments that can be made there. I think some of the most powerful conversations we can have are like that.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. We've kind of been diving, I think, into a little bit of culture, talking about the process, and I can't imagine a bigger culture piece than that. Like how that one idea transforms, man, the way that you train, the way that you talk to each other, the way that you handle every day. In your opinion, how does culture drive performance?
I think it's everything. That was one of the when I had the opportunity to hire an assistant this year. That was the first thing that we did, is sit out and kind of dive out or carve out what we wanted this program to be. And I think we came up with 6 or 7 words, and man, we plastered that thing everywhere, and we talk about it all the time. And it was in the fall. People probably thought it was crazy, but we sacrificed so much time on the floor to go up in the classroom and just talk about these cultural pieces and what they were going to do to us. I think we had like culture Tuesdays and stuff that we'd go out there and we'd have our guys present on them, and it was definitely paid dividends down the road. It was time that we sacrificed, but I don't think that and it might be years from now where it pays off, especially with some of our younger guys. But I don't think we could, if we would have been building on a shaky foundation, right?
Yeah.
If we wouldn't have done that. Um, and it's just been big for our guys to have a voice. Like the other day, my wife and I went and watched the movie Air over the
Is
weekend,
it
and
good?
really good, man, really good. And just seeing the principles of Nike, what kind of made them great. And I took those to our guys and printed that out, and we talked about it for 15 or 20 minutes the other day. Just those 9 things that Nike does, and I think the first one is like Nike says, we're in the business of change, right? So I asked her guys, like, what are we in the business of? And I, not knowing anything, like I'd kind of thought about it during the day, like, man, what do I kind of think? And I probably didn't even give it enough thought, but it was amazing. We had a freshman who can kind of be kind of goofy and never, I never really know what he's gonna say, but he like stuck his hand up so fast. He just said opportunity. We're in the business of opportunity. And I was like, man, like that's powerful, right? And to have it's better than what I had in my mind going into that day. And I think that's a big part of our culture is that, that's not necessarily one of our words that we use, but him feeling like he has that opportunity to have that voice. And man, that's been going through my mind all week long is, man, like our guys are here because of the opportunities that we have, right? And that holds me accountable to that, right? Of making sure that I continue to let them have those opportunities. Um, but I don't think you can go anywhere. I do think that you can have success without a successful culture. I'm not sure if you can have sustained success without a successful culture. I think it's the difference between winning in the short term and winning in the long term. So, man, we're lucky in the district that we're in is like we're in with North Crowley and Coach Brackle, and we talk about it all the time with our guys. Like, man, they are the standard. And the culture that he has built over there is you can see it, right? Like it's palpable when you walk into the gym over there, their culture that they have. And me as a young coach being able to see that, even though that's not it doesn't do me a lot of favors in the win-loss column. It's powerful to see and for our guys to learn from. So um I don't know. The culture has been big for us, and I was lucky to be able to kind of learn from that and know that going in. I feel like we knew that was going to be big.
I wrote down that question, what are we in the business of? And, I love the fact that I think that's man, I like asking our players and our teams like those kinds of questions.
Yeah.
And because I was guilty of for a long time showing up on day one, here's our culture, and like an acronym from PGC, SHAPE, which SHAPE is great. And like that is a great culture. I use Jamodi and I try to put 6 words with that. And so I threw that on them for a little bit. And then like you and your assistant did, we kind of sat down last summer and said, okay, instead of just something we've learned from someone else, and there's nothing wrong with any of those slogans or ideas, what over the last few years, how do we actually show up? Like, what are the principles that are really important to us? And so we wrote down a bunch of different words, and then we started to circle the ones that really come up a lot and place some words underneath. And then the whole idea, Tyler Costin talked about this, the whole idea of having your players be co-creators of that. Like
Mm-hmm.
that question to me lets me know what's really important to the players.
Yeah.
Opportunity. So in my opinion, like if it maybe opportunity becomes a piece of a really huge culture piece that you guys talk about and live out, but we let our players choose if like kind of Coach K, a 5-fingered approach. We chose 4 based on the ways that the words we actually use and what we say, but then they chose it. And then from year to year, that senior class chooses that 5th word. And I think that's just a way to where it's if you don't have any culture talks, you still have one. It's just probably not good. It's going
Yeah.
the wrong way. But
Yeah.
instead of like I used to do, mandating, here are our things, enjoy it, buy in, live it,
Mm-hmm.
allow them to co-create. And the questions like that, man, I think you find out real quick.
No doubt, no doubt. And yeah, it's interesting to see too is when, like you were saying, sometimes you have these talks whenever things aren't going good. In the season, I think it's a little bit of a test for us as a coaching staff what our culture is like whenever we ask those questions. Like, man, we're on a 3-game losing streak. Like, what is going wrong? And when they do use the words that are kind of like we have the same thing. We got like 7 words that we talk about, and they're using those words to describe like where we're coming up short. Man, I feel like we're getting somewhere. So that's been a big part of it. Like I said, is just hopefully seeing that pay off down the road more.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products. Confidence is something that can, obviously, especially with high school players, rise and fall. And even guys that try to show that they're confident or they put in a lot of time, they struggle. I mean, slumps are real and they go through those ups and downs throughout a season. How do you build confidence in your players?
Yeah. I think you hit on it a little bit ago whenever you were saying how when talking to your players whenever they come off the floor. Conversations with our guys has been huge. One-on-one has been big. I knew coming into the year we had 4 freshmen on the varsity, which is unheard of. In our situation at Bell, if you're going to have a freshman, it's changing now as we move on, which is going to help us. But if you're going to have a freshman in the program, they have to be on varsity. They're either going to play freshman ball or they're going to play varsity. So a freshman couldn't play on the JV. So with only having 1 senior, we had room for freshmen. So we knew that we needed to back build a little bit, and we brought 4 of them up who weren't, I don't know, moving into the season. If I would have said, man, these guys are for sure ready, like these are 6A guys are going to be able to compete at a high level. I think they all knew that. And we had a couple guys that surprised us that it was going to be for them. But every Wednesday, we had freshman Wednesday. And after every practice on Wednesday, those 4 guys came in the office and we just talked. I asked them the same 4 questions, like, how's it going basketball wise? What are our grades at? Because they're at a different campus. So super difficult to track where our grades are. If they have any questions for me and like, what can we do in the next week to meet our goals? And they all talked. And there was times that one guy was not having a good week, and him having that space to say that, I think was big for his confidence. Our guys left those meetings every Wednesday. Like I felt better after those meetings, knowing where they were at. I also think that our guys are not afraid to make a mistake, probably to a fault a little bit. But like our
guys, I need you to care a little bit more about making mistakes.
Yeah. But I guess that's part of maybe who I am too, is like I'm not afraid to fail. Like I'm probably going to fail a million more times than I'm going to succeed. If that means we're going to run a certain offense and it's going to take it into the ground, and man, I'll wear that. But we're not going to make a decision to be afraid to fail, right? So I want our guys to feel that too. So, there's accountability, right? Like there's that stat sheet doesn't lie, like if we're doing certain things. But I think there's a whole lot of confidence in that. I think that's where a lot of it starts.
I love the fact that you meet with your players like that. And I think that's impressive. I think we need to, I was thinking early on we're talking about culture, style play. How often in practice are our minds solely focused on X's and O's, execution, spacing, all of the things that they do matter. It does equal winning. I mean, golly, if you don't focus on that, then you're going to have a bunch of dudes that love each other that can't hoop and play together. Right. And so it is important, but then we also have to be conscious of those culture moments, because you could just I love your culture Tuesday. You could just do that. But I think a lot of coaches might just check it off the list, like, got our culture piece. And I know for a fact, like, it's not only that for you. I think you got TJ Rosine at Emmanuel is just amazing at having his zooming out, having his eyes open for culture moments
Yeah.
when a player struggles and another player hypes him up and embraces it, moments when the opposite happens and we have to address it instead of just letting it go by because it's not X's and O's in that moment. But confidence is the same way in a
Yeah.
practice. When you notice somebody's confidence is drooping, and that can show in multiple ways. Maybe a guy that normally takes a shot doesn't, bring them off the floor, and you ask those open-ended questions that not just, are you feeling good? Yep. Yeah, I am. Yeah. Like get deeper into it. And then the intentionality you have with those four freshmen, I think that's something you can do. I need to do with all my players is like, hey, after every practice, we're going to have this group come in. Man, I think there's a lot to it there.
No doubt, no doubt, and I think, man, those are huge for us. I think even having those conversations, there was when we're going, like you said, we're talking about the running offense, running defense. We're worried about, man, where are we at and spacing, all the stuff and execution. I try to always have our point guard, our second point guard, kind of standing by me so I can talk to him and he's seeing the same things that I'm seeing, And I think the other big piece for us is communication. It could be totally right and totally wrong. I'm not sure, but it sure seems like when our guys are talking, they're a whole lot more confident. So it's been a big thing for us is that, like, we're going to talk no matter what, and it sure seems like our guys are more engaged. Our guys are more confident when they're communicating with each other. So that's been big for us.
I definitely think that's the case. Um, we say, especially defensively, communication makes us faster. The reason it makes us faster is that I'm not having to guess on what you're doing or wait around to see what you're doing. I know, I hear it. And you could almost substitute that communication makes us confident
Yeah,
because I'm not having to wonder or hesitate to wait. I think offensively it's the same way. Defense, but when the culture is the same way too, because and that's where as coaches we need to teach them. Like at PGC, we said, why don't players communicate? And we kind of wait for some answers, but the biggest reason they're either too cool or they're too shy,
right,
or they don't know what to say. And so if it's too cool or too shy, we need to address those. But then don't know what to say, that's on us. So
right.
when you teach those players the concepts that offense defensively you want, you can then. But I walk into some select practices up here, and I see a coach walking down the way. Go, we need to talk. We need to talk. We need to talk. Okay, do they actually know what to say? Like, have you
Right.
taught them the words, or do you just want mindless chatter? That just
Yeah,
did, like it's not like we're in baseball and we're in the outfield just yelling stuff. Or maybe that's an insult. I don't know, but I think you're right on the money. But anytime that you see your team lacking in something, turn it back around. It's on you, right? That type of accountability.
yeah. It's easy to blow that whistle and say, "Get on the line." We're not talking, right? But it does fall on us as coaches for sure. Heck, we've had times that we've had to eliminate the clapping. Sometimes the clapping, I think, is a bailout for not
It's a
communicating.
crutch. It's a
Yeah,
crutch.
for sure, right? Like, I'm not sure what to say, so I'm just gonna clap. Like, I'm not sure that's quite good enough.
It's a
Um,
start. Like, okay,
yeah,
if let's guys, here are our three keys for this drill. You know what? Those keys, that's what you can give as reminders. But if you're not comfortable, not confident in it yet,
yeah, yeah,
bang your hands together. Be a better teammate than as the seal at the zoo is.
right,
Like do that at least, because it's this idea of you're either contributing or you're contaminating. There's
yeah,
no gray.
right.
And if you're quiet, you're contaminating our championship environment.
No doubt. I know John Gordon calls them energy vampires, right? Like,
It's
we
good.
got to get rid of those for sure, for sure.
I got one more, and it's kind of interesting. How old are you?
33.
33. Okay, so yeah, 8 years difference, almost a decade. But as time goes on, like more and more coaches coming up, Do you remember a time when you didn't have social media?
For sure, man. I remember going to, I don't know, what is it? I remember going to like a team camp at the University of Missouri when I was in high school. And I was like walking through like out of the dorms, and like this girl's on the computer and she has Facebook pulled up. And like guys are like, oh my gosh, she has Facebook. Like, what is that? Right. So like that was in like going, it might have been like eighth grade going into freshman year. Like that was kind of the start of it. Right. So, I mean, there was, I guess, MySpace, all that stuff before, but
Yeah,
nobody's using any of that stuff for sports necessarily back
right.
then. I think now it's almost become it's a must, right? Like all of our guys, that's what they do. Like when they're not around us, they're on social media, right? Like
Well,
it's
yeah, no doubt our players have only known it, and a lot of their parents now are have had it for at least half their life. So it's like the idea of you can be a coach and not be on it. Obviously, it's still true. Like it's a possibility. It doesn't make you a bad coach if you're not on social media and you're
right.
not using it. But that's the thing. It's a tool. It's a tool that we can use to hype up our program, to celebrate our players, to let people in a little bit on the culture that we have. And and like show that we celebrate some successes besides just the ones that are objective, like we won. That's easy. What ways do you use social media to enhance your program?
Yeah, so I think we use it, try to use it a lot in the off season, like you said, to give people a little bit of a glimpse into what we do, other than just the game stuff, right? And whether it's, man, we ran 2 miles today, right? So we'll take a picture and put it up there. We'll tell the guys, hey, man, we give it all. We're going to put everybody on Twitter tonight, or um, I think it is another way, like you said, to showcase our guys, especially when they're not with us. I think it's big this time of year when our guys are with their select teams, when they're playing AAU, that it gives us another glimpse into them, and it shows that we are supporting them when they're not with us too. The retweet is can be a powerful thing. You know, it's so big with us now. Like I have guys Monday morning knocking on the door, like, Coach, why didn't you like my tweet? Why didn't you retweet whatever we had? You know, so they want it for sure. They know the power of it as well. So I think it becomes a way for us to showcase to our community what we're doing, and to our guys and their families. And I think it shows that they are important with what we're doing. Man, it seems like it's endless, right? Like you can spend so much time on there and do so much. Like, like going to Arkansas and following them. Coach Musselman is maybe the king of social media up there, right?
He
Like,
is really good. Yeah.
right. Yeah. And man, there's some stuff I can't do all of it. There's some stuff that are like, man, we could do something like that. But there's some high school coaches in our area that are really, really good at it. Like Coach Holman over at Birdville High School, he does a great job on social media with his guys. So I don't know. That goes back to the comparison piece, right? Like we gotta do that, but at the same time, like we can learn from that, and it's big.
That's a big nugget though too. Is it with all this stuff, reading books, listening to podcasts, watching videos. There's so much great stuff out there,
Yep.
but you can't do everything.
Right.
Like, so you really got to have some self-awareness and figure out, all right, within the time that I have every day, within my skills, and there's a level of, okay, you don't want to be super uncomfortable with what you're doing, because I think that comes through, but you also, just only doing things that are make you comfortable, like that comfort zone piece. Yeah, we ask our players to get outside of it. Maybe we have to do that a little bit too. But I
Yep.
do think with social media, it's here. Our players are on it. It's free. All it takes is our time. But I think if you're organized with it and just a little bit creative, yeah, it can be something that is completely doable within the as a head coach. I mean, at Grapevine Faith, I'm the only one, that does that stuff. And so like it is possible, but like I have a schedule. I have a schedule of what day, what posts, and to me, it's another way too. Like we want every player in our program to feel valued. Well, if you're only celebrating the dudes that score a lot, or those things, like all those other guys can feel sometimes like they're left out. Well, man, social media, shooting games, different things that they can do, Wisdom Wednesdays, and then how can I keep former players, their kind of legacy still alive, keep them still a part of it? Man, social media. So like there's a lot of things that we can do. And then I think following some of those people like Coach Musselman, I personally can't, I'm not funny and I'm not creative like that. I can't get in front of the camera and do that kind of stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that stuff I'm probably not going to do, but ways that he celebrates his players, maybe there's something I can steal or borrow from that.
No doubt. Yeah, and staying connected with your alumni on that is huge, and it almost makes it easier in some ways, right? That when our guys do play at the next level, just staying connected with those guys, and the other thing is for coaching, man, I'm so much of a better coach because of social media, right? Like I can watch what you're doing at Grapevine Faith at practice, right? And I'm like, man, like this is some good stuff. We need to incorporate some of that, or whoever, what people post. I think it helps us out as coaches. So naturally, our guys are become the benefactors of that as well.
Years ago, I was listening to a podcast where I can't even remember who it was, but he said, if you're a coach and you're not using social media to promote your program, you're behind. And that was like in 2008 or 2009 when I heard that. And as a competitor, okay, I don't want to be behind. I'm going to do it. And it has been like, just for those coaches out there that are probably like me, that like, that's just not something that I'm comfortable with. I don't do that. I don't like, I felt that same way. And there's times where I wonder, okay, am I doing too much? I don't think you can really do too much. I think the majority of the time you're doing too little.
Yep.
And so, and I mean, and maybe you have like your spouse or somebody close to you, like, hey, I think it's too much. That's a great problem. Like if
Right.
that's the side of the spectrum that you're on. But I think I've had players or I've had families from other schools in the past ask, like, who does your social media? Like who? Man, we wish we had people at our school promoting, and I think it's becoming more and more common. And there's great companies out there too that we don't. I think our school uses a company. I don't use it in our program because I've gotten comfortable with Photoshop, and I have the templates. It's easy for me to knock stuff out, and I'm a little bit of a control freak, so I like having that. But I don't know. It matters to kids. It matters to parents. For the most part, it's free. It just takes up our time.
Right. Yeah, but it's so powerful though, right? So powerful. When our guys, if they're on a game day graphic, right, it makes their day. Or if the kid finally dunked in practice and we get it on film, man, like we're doing something. So it's it I think there can be some negatives. I'm not sure there's a bunch of negatives when it comes to promoting your program with it though, right? Like I think there's only positives when it comes to sharing
Yeah.
the going on.
Keep it all about your team. Never make it about anybody else.
Yep.
And yeah. Well, coach, the speed round. I feel like I know you pretty well after our talk, but after the speed round, I'm really going to know who you are.
Okay. All right.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oof, I'm lactose intolerant, coach. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're the first. You're the first one. Like that. That's an insulting question. Okay, what's your go-to sweets?
Oof, man, cookies. Like, there's a Tiff Treats like right by Bell, and it's man
What
dangerous.
about crumble cookie?
Man, Tiff's over all day long. Crumble's not bad, but man, I'll eat Tiff's over crumble any day.
You know what's unique about crumble cookie is the fact that, like, and for those of you that don't know, it every week they only have like 4 or 5 flavors that you can choose from, and they're different from week to week. So like you might think like that's a horrible business model, but it's almost like I don't know, a guessing game. And then, oh, when you finally get the flavor that you've been looking for, you make sure, like, it's pretty brilliant.
Trying to keep up, coach. That's why they got to change the game. They're trying to keep up with Tiff's, I
Yeah.
think.
Greatest shooter of all time.
Ooh, Steph Curry.
Texting or talking?
Hmm. Talking.
Are you sure? Because I think that sometimes I feel like the hesitation is
Hey,
texting, but you don't want to
hey,
say it.
I guess is it a context of easier? It's easier to
Well,
text, or
I think too. I think it always depends on who it is.
right? I mean, I would talking's more meaningful. Like if I need
Yep,
to have a conversation, I'm going to talk. But I guess it's just all context with that. But if I'm gonna like texting's easier, but I would rather talk to somebody.
that's good. Greatest basketball movie of all time.
Oof. Um, I really probably Coach Carter is really up there for me. Like I really big.
You ever want just to take a player and put your forearm right in it shove them like man, I watched that. I'm like, yeah, I can maybe see some of my no, not my old McKinney players. No, no way. But yeah, no, there is some good. Let me ask you this though. Is there ever a part of you that thought that the 1,000 push-ups and 1,000 suicides was a little unrealistic?
It did. But then there was a part of me where it was like, man, like, should I be doing that? Like, is that the accountability that we need, right? Like, is that what we need? But
Guys, listen, watch Coach Carter over the weekend. So if you have the wrong socks on, you've got 100 suicides and you can't come back before. I just remember thinking, like, I'm all for consequences and earning your right to come back, but 1,000? Like,
right,
is
wild
that even possible? I don't know. I'd love to maybe talk to the guy but um, for high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
shot clock,
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
You're up 3 on defense with 7 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
I'm not gonna foul. Not gonna
Uh,
foul.
I'm the same way at the high school level. I think I'm not going to foul. I get it at the higher levels when players can really just at high degree of difficulty make shots.
Right. Yeah. I just here. I think college is a different story, like you're saying, right? But at our
Mm.
level, somebody's gonna make that shot. Well, I'll happily go to overtime.
What book would you give someone?
Oof, man. Um, got to be something by John Gordon. There's been a bunch of stuff that's really changed me for the better, and his stuff is powerful. The energy bus is big. Power of
Training Camp. Training Camp is one of my favorites.
yeah, the power of positive leadership was big as well for me. So um, definitely one of his books. I mean, you can't go wrong with his stuff.
Can't. Yeah. Favorite place to travel?
Man, Arizona. Wife and I went to Arizona, Phoenix, Sedona. Man, places. There's something powerful about that place. It's
Nice.
awesome.
You get up early. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Coach, you didn't ask me about my bad habits. So I'm no coffee, but I am Dr. Pepper every morning.
Yeah, you're right, coach. I'm not gonna because I care about you. I'm not gonna lie to you and say that's okay. Because I think I thought you were saying like, yeah, I drink like 5 cups of coffee. Black coffee, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay. Now, what you're drinking, what you're putting in, yeah, we can no. But you know what? Like it's Matthew Driscoll, who was an assistant at Baylor when I was there. He's at North Florida now. He runs just so many miles every day. But the reason is he's like, because at dinner that night, I want to be able to eat whatever I want. And I saw it for that year. Like he would have just eat everything.
Yeah,
But so you run so that
because
you can have your Dr. Pepper.
that's exactly right, man. I got to get that Dr. Pepper out of the system, but I've tried. I've tried to quit, and my wife has better willpower than I because she drank Diet Coke. She'd have one every morning, and she made the change to coffee recently, and she's gone 3 months like cold turkey, and she's all into coffee. So maybe this summer I need to make the switch, but I've tried to quit, man, but it's tough. It's tough.
Last one in basketball, who is the GOAT?
Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan. It was I'm telling you, the movie aired. If there was any
Yeah.
doubt, watch that
Well,
and you're like,
Last Dance too, right?
yeah, see all that stuff recently. There's no doubt.
Coach, this was really enjoyable, man. Like you and I getting to talk at the Gasso, I really appreciated that time that we had, and I love the direction that you're going. What LD Bell's not too far from here, so it's always fun to kind of get to know coaches from around the area and get to support and kind of root for you and your program. And I'll definitely be doing that in the future. But man, just really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for what you're doing. I can't tell you how much it's I've become a better coach listening to this, and it's become a part of my morning routine. If I'm on a run or driving to school, listening to the
Oh,
podcast.
there are better voices that you could
Oh,
choose to.
no way, man. Honestly, when I started, it was Coach Blackburn at Boswell kind of got me started listening to it. 'Cause I know he used to do one, what was it, 2 years
Yep.
pre-COVID,
Yep.
right? Kind of got me listening. But there was one morning I was driving to TABC, and I left super early that morning just to get to the first session. So I left at like 3 o'clock, and I think I went through 3 or 4 podcasts on the way to San Antonio that morning. And
And
great
you
stuff.
made it. You didn't just like.
Right, like, yep.
That's all. Well, man, I'm humbled that anybody listens to it. At the end of the day, love getting to talk with coaches. Love learning more. And if I mean, just a couple of good like that. What are you in the business of, or what are we in the business of? Like that nugget just alone right there. I think anytime you can listen or talk to somebody, there's something that you can pick up and learn. And so, man, appreciate you and excited for the future of what you're going to do at LD Bell, man.
I really appreciate it, Coach. Good luck to you guys as well.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.